Again, Jerry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the DeKalb City Council, July 8, 2019. Prior to roll call, I would like to remind anyone who would like to speak to any of the items that we have on the Committee of the Whole meeting tonight, and we do have two, or any item not on the agenda, you're more than welcome to fill out a speaker request form there in the back of the room. Kindly hand that speaker request form to our city clerk, Lynn Fazekas, and we'll get you on at the appropriate time. Having said that, roll call, please.
Morris. Fanouken.
Here.
Smith. Fagan.
Here.
McAdams.
Here.
Verbic.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. Item B on the Committee of the Whole agenda tonight is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's Committee of the Whole? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Alderman McAdams, second by Alderman Verbic. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
The agenda is approved as presented. Not having any speaker request forms in front of me, I'm going to assume that there is no one in the audience tonight who would like to take part in public participation. So we'll move on to item D, considerations. And our first one is presentation of the FY 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, Audit Report, and Management Letter by Sikich LLP. I'm going to ask City Manager Bill Nicholas to introduce this consideration, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know from your background report, Sikich LLC has completed our annual financial report, and tonight we have Brian Lefevre who will be presenting the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or our CAFR, for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018. And I want to thank Ray Munch and Bob Miller for being our liaisons and adding a lot of information along the way to help the Sikich team do their job. Brian.
Thanks, Bill. On behalf of Sikich, I'd like to thank the mayor and the members of City Council for inviting us here to present the report resulting from the audit for the city's year ended December 31st, 2018. I have prepared some comments for you on the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I'll be happy to answer any questions along the way and also at the end as well. Within the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, you'll see 3 sections, 3 tabs. One's an introductory section, one a financial section, one's a statistical section. In order to meet the requirements for an audit from Illinois compiled statutes, everything you see in the financial section meets those requirements. What makes it a comprehensive annual financial report are the introductory and statistical section. The statistical section has a number of trend schedules, 10-year schedules of revenues, expenditures, things about property taxes and debt capacity. I won't go into any detail on those, but I just want to make sure you understood what was in that statistical section. Within the introductory section, the 3rd page, Roman numeral 3, is the award that the city received for its 2017 CAFR from the Government Finance Officers Association, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And this was the 25th consecutive year the city received this award. You should all be commended for this. It's the highest level of financial reporting within the local government community. In addition, upon your acceptance of the CAFR this evening, the city will then file the CAFR as well and hopes to receive the award again for the 2018 CAFR. Within the financial section, the first page in the financial section you'll see is on Sikich letterhead. This is where we've given an opinion on the financial statements. In order for us to give an opinion on the financial statements, we're required to follow 2 sets of standards. One are the auditing standards issued by the AICPA, which tells us the types of procedures that we need to to perform when we're conducting our audit. And then the second set of standards are the financial reporting standards issued by the GASB, or Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which governs local governments such as the city, tells you what the CAFR needs to look like in terms of its form and content. Once we follow those two sets of standards, we can then give an opinion on the financial statements. We're pleased to present an unmodified opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, free of material misstatement. And this is the highest level of opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. I will make note to an additional paragraph on page 2 in the opinion where it says change in accounting principle. One of the things that, as you follow GASB standards, there's new standards that are issued. This year, the city was required to implement GASB Statement 75 on post-employment benefits, basically retiree health insurance, and that did record a significant liability onto the city's financial statements as of December 31st. The last page of the opinion on page 3 references what's called government auditing standards in the last paragraph, and that reference is to the separate document called the single audit that was also performed. The single audit is a compliance audit. Anytime you have expenditures of more than $750,000 in federal expenditures for the fiscal year, you're required to have the separate federal single audit. And within that separate single audit document, we gave 2 opinions. Both were unmodified or clean opinions. One was on compliance with laws and regulations that could have a material impact on the city's financial statements. And then the second was the compliance with your major programs. This year, the major program being the mass transit program that was tested, because that was $1.2 million of the $1.7 million in federal funds that the city expended. Finally, the last opinion that we gave in a separate document was in the separate TIF compliance, and you'll see unmodified opinion for the TIFs there as well. Just a couple other highlights of the comprehensive annual financial report. The next document is the management discussion analysis. Starts on page MD&A 1 because the city prepares it, and then we insert that into the final document. It's required by GASB. It serves as the executive summary. We review it to make sure that the presentation is consistent with the financial statements and those GASB standards. If you don't have a chance to read the entire CAFR, because I know it's a lengthy document, I would encourage you to start with the management discussion and analysis. The management discussion analysis goes for 12 pages. And after those 12 pages starts the audited financial statements, and bring to your attention the balance sheet for governmental funds on pages 8 and 9 is where you'll see the results for the general fund for the year. The general fund balance as of December 31st was just over $7.4 million. And how that $7.4 million was arrived at, you can find on pages 11 and 12, where you see the income statement for the year, showing that the revenues were $35.3 million with expenditures of $34.6 million, an increase of $679,000, and then you did have some required transfers to other funds. Ultimately, the fund balance for the fiscal year went down by $1,670,000. And all of the information in the management discussion analysis basically explains the whys of those transactions in the general fund as well. Page 16 is where you find the results of your enterprise funds, your water and your airport funds. So you can see the revenues and expenses on page 16. And then page 20 is the information related to your police and fire pension funds, combined into one column here at the front of the statements. In the back of the statements, if you want to see the individual income statements and balance sheets for the police and fire pension funds, you'll find those on pages 141 and 142. Of note, in 2018, so keep in mind when a balance sheet's prepared, we draw a line in the sand as of December 31st, and where the market value of the investments were at December 31st is how those are reported upon. So December 31st, 2018 was not a good December, right? Markets were down, so the investments that are maintained at market value or fair value for the pension funds all had significant decreases. So you do see net negative investment income for the fiscal year. However, as we roll forward and we think about that was at 12/31, all of the markets recovered and then some. So the first 6 months for most of our clients in terms of their pension funds have significantly increased the value of their assets. Now, when you go to fund those pension plans, and this would include IMRF as well, IMRF, police, and fire, you're funding based on a 5-year smooth basis. So just because you had a significant decrease in investments in one particular fiscal year, that only affects 1/5, if you will, of your funding. So that is important to understand the difference between how the accounting and financial reporting is shown in those assets versus how the actuary determines what your contribution should be for a particular fiscal year. With that, I would segue over to page 83, which is the information related to the 3 different pension plans of the city. The IMRF plan starting on page 83, this is intended to show you the contributions made during the year versus what the actuary recommended. And for IMRF, it's a statutory provision that each and every month the city puts in the actuarially calculated employer contribution rate. So you're always going to see those contributions being the same as the actuarially determined contribution. The budgetary impact for fiscal year 18 of $1,068,000, which is just under 15% of the covered payroll for the period. Page 84 and 85 has information then related to the police pension plan. And you'll see both for police and fire that the city contributed more than what the actuary required those contributions to be, with the $2,989,000 for police. And then on pages 86 and 87, the $3.4 million for the fire plan. So one way to look at the health of a pension fund is the city putting in the required amounts, and then we look to the financial statements to see how the plan is doing. And as I mentioned, with those market values going down, we see some results that reflect that, and one other item. So if we keep turning to pages 88 and 89, this is the financial information for IMRF. So when we look at an actuarial valuation and lay this out into financial terms, GASB doesn't give us terminology that necessarily is always so user-friendly. So the total pension liability, what GASB is saying there is that's all the active employees in the plan, plus all the retirees that are already receiving a benefit. The actuary does a calculation of how much are all the benefit payments projected to be for everyone, and then present values that number back to December 31st. So in this case, the first double underscored number in the far right-hand column of page 89 is $60,163,000. Plan fiduciary net position is just GASB's fancy way of saying the assets at market value. And the assets at market value were $49.4 million, leaving a net pension liability of $10.6 million, 82.3% funded, very well-funded plan. Down from 94% for 2 reasons. One, the market in 2018, the net investment income went down. And then secondly, the IMRF revised its anticipated rate of return on its investments from 7.5% to 7.25%. So when that interest rate assumption comes down, your liability goes up, and therefore your funded ratio goes down. So those 2 things were kind of the double whammy in 2018. Expect to see some, if things continue in 2019 the way they have been, expect to see something different in 2019. So then we can look at the police pension plan on pages 90 and 91. Similarly, the funded percentage went down slightly because of those results for the year on the investment income side, not because the city didn't put in the required amount, just because of the change there. In addition, there was also a change in assumptions to the new mortality tables for both police and fire, which, if you haven't already heard from your actuary, those basically say people are living longer, which made that liability go up as well. That was a $2.4 million impact in 2018. So the police pension fund was at 43.7% funded. Pages 92 and 93, you'll see the fire was at 35% funded. Now, as we start to build history for what GASB requires, beginning on pages, or on pages, facing pages 94 and 95, you can see what the investment returns have been for police and fire over the last 6 fiscal periods. So with an actuarial assumption of 7%, you can see in some years you make the 7%, in some years you don't. And that's, kind of what happens with the markets when you're measuring everything on fair value. Those are the highlights that I had prepared for you this evening on the CAFR. In conclusion, the audit went very smoothly, and we received all the information that we needed on a timely basis. City has very professional staff and worked very well with our team to meet those deadlines and to be here this evening to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? If not, we thank you for your presentation tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You very much.
Okay, consideration number 2 tonight, Alulu Brewery presentation, The House. And once again, I'm going to introduce, I'm going to call on Bill Nicholas, our city manager, to introduce our guest tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. While we toast our financial workers here at City Hall, here's an opportunity to hopefully someday provide for toast at a lot of local events. We have representatives tonight of Alulu Brewery and Pub of Chicago. As I noted in my background report, they have been in negotiation with, they've been looking at a number of local properties since the holidays, the mid-winter holidays, and have focused now most recently on the house, what used to be called the House Cafe. There are some attachments for the council, and we will also have up some slides which they would like to show you and talk about tonight. They have a brief report for you, and then there'll be some Q&A. Paul Heinz is going to start, and Derek Bly will probably chip in, and Martha, are you going to possibly say something as well? Let me just say that the purpose of this tonight is to introduce their concept, and if you are favorably impressed, then there's more work to do, but ultimately we would be bringing something back to you, such as possibly a preliminary development agreement. You know the process we've gone through with other projects. And then if the council approves that, then there are some real hard steps after that. Plans have to be worked out, financial shared and so forth. So we're a little bit away, but in making their plans, it was important for them in terms of their timing to get a read from the council as to whether you think this concept is a good one for the community and for the downtown. I hope you will. I've spent a fair amount of time with this team, and we have looked at it from a number of angles, and also have looked at our TIF budget, and I can maybe talk a little bit about that afterward, but I gave you a kind of a quick and dirty snapshot of where we are with our TIF program. This year, we had the audited numbers from 2018, so I will put those in. The 2020, 2021 are just purely speculative at this point. So that is my background to start off, and I'll yield to Paul.
Thanks. Hi, guys. I'm Paul Heinz from Alulu Brewery and Pub, and this is Derek Bly. He's our CFO, and Martha. She's our local resident and potential investor, hopefully. You guys have all been sent this presentation, so I'm going to just kind of quickly go through it just to set the baseline, and then we can decide from here. These are some rough plans, looks like, to start with. This is the basement where we would put the brewery in the building. This is the main floor, which would be very similar to what is there right now. And then we did a concept drawing of what we'd propose to do on the roof, which is to add a beer garden and event space on the roof. Hopefully as an enticement, is something different in the community that we haven't seen, but we are aware of some neighboring communities that have had success doing this. Plus, the building itself, this particular parcel, doesn't have any outdoor space, and as in our Chicago space, everybody wants to be outside when it's nice out, which there's only, 2 months out of the year now, but we'll take what we can get. And we want to try to maximize our potential with doing potentially weddings and just bigger events that, would like to be in a brewery. This is a side view of a rooftop proposal that we were going to add some coverage so that we could, over time, enclose it so that we can get more months out of the year usage of it, hopefully all year round if it's not too cold. And then here's just some photos of some inspiration that we've taken from other things about the kind of dooring we're planning for the front. As you can see on the left, that's the existing house cafe, and then on the right, we're going to add more doors just to help with capacity and with fire, so that people can get out if there was a fire, which hopefully we'll never have. But I know that's a concern. Some lighting ideas. That's it, I guess. Okay, so it's not the other deck. We had the other deck, which we sent to you guys as well. It had some more slides in it. But basically, we've been in business for about 2 years now. We opened in March of 2017. Things are going very well in Chicago, and we're probably the smallest brewery in Chicago. We have a 3.5 barrel system, which is tiny. Most places would call us a nano brewery. And what we're looking to do is expand. We needed a space where we can create more beer for both locations, for our DeKalb location and for our Chicago location. And ultimately, we wanted to see what you guys thought about this idea, and and get some feedback and see if we think it would be a good, partnership with your town. So, one other thing I would add is just that, we want to create a community space that is really going to be a hub for creatives, for locals, staff of the university, but also just the main community residents who are here all year round, because we want to make sure that we don't, we can make it sustainable during the summer. Anything you want to add, Derek?
To elaborate on his point about production, we also have, we're in talks with various food sourcers that are looking for a single source to provide beer to their meat cures. And they're looking to then go third party into Whole Foods and other locations. So as part of that, we do need the production capacity, which would help with providing liquidity as well. So both locations would benefit, and then third party and name brand recognition would then come from that as well.
I guess we sought out from the House Cafe, we sought out investors because that particular footprint in downtown, I think that it has way more capacity for generating revenue, sales tax revenue. Something like this would definitely, now you have all the floors being utilized, you have even another floor now being added with different three-season models and louvered, framing and stuff like that. Could definitely be very comfortable. The hope is to draw from outside communities outside of DeKalb, as well as piggyback on what Pappas has already started to make those residents that are now in the apartments that he's been building stay in the downtown area and spend money there. And not only that, but make those apartments that he has been building attractive because of what's offered in downtown. To continue, hopefully, be an art space as a venue for the university, as well as, different community organizations that over the years have played there. Also, do different community events for the arts, as far as visual arts and stuff like that, displays, fundraisers, but also as a capacity for a catering area. That's a good amount of revenue generated from that.
Thank you. Sure. So, yep. And so the idea is just that it's a modular layout. It's the kind of thing that we can transform the space to be whatever it needs to be. If we are having a wedding there, we can transform it into that. If we're having, some kind of rock concert, we can transform it into that. We would like, if we move forward with the rooftop deck and we can make that happen, we'd want to make sure that you guys are okay with us doing things like having live music on there on maybe a Friday afternoon for happy hour or something like that, to a reasonable hour, like maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That's kind of how it works in Chicago. You can have, some loud music until, people are really going to sleep. But yeah, other than that, I mean, we wanted to kind of give you guys time to ask us questions and. see
That
what
we do.
shows up.
I'm sure we have a few
Yeah.
questions. Let me start.
Sure.
Since I have the mic. I was impressed with your background material, and I like the reasons that you feel you can be successful here. I would take it that one of those conduits for success is finding a local investor like Martha and her family. You know, when the Forge opened up on 6th Street, and they just brew there,
Yeah.
and they sell a little bit. I remember talking to the gentleman and said, what happens if somebody else comes in? He said, the more, the better.
Exactly.
Because of the beer trail or the
Yep.
wine trail,
Exactly.
wine trail concept. Obviously, since he's built, the Byers family, as a matter of fact, they just moved their large stainless steel vats in this morning.
Yeah.
They had to take the window out of the building to get those things in. They were so large. So I take it just from your shaking your heads to the positive that you look at that as a positive as opposed to a negative.
Absolutely.
Because folks, you know, have said to me, since they've seen this relatively recently in the newspaper, why would somebody want to do this? You know, I mean, aren't we going to have more than we need? And I guess what I hear you saying is no. But with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions or comments.
Can we see the basement?
Yeah. This is the basement up now.
Bob, you're sort of out of order at this point.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to see the floor plan, that's it.
Okay, very good. Can you see that?
Yes.
What, if you have any, this gentleman here, do you know Bob?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he and his brother Glenn own McCabe's and that building, and I'd hope you could stick around and make any comments that you'd like.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to interject, I just wanted to see the floor.
Okay, very, very good. But if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to stay and make those comments during our regular city council meeting. Is that
Thank you.
appropriate?
I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, and no problem, no problem. Don't feel that bad about it. Alderman Morris.
I just wanted to give full disclosure, and I'm not sure if I should recuse myself at this point, but I have talked with them about investing in this, but I haven't gotten to any promise or plan to invest. So I can step out and keep my comments to myself if you think that's the best course of action.
What's the desire of the council? Do you feel that Carolyn is being out of order by sitting here and listening to this? I hear somebody saying no, but Mike?
Yeah, if there's any possibility, you should recuse yourself.
I'm ready to step out.
Alderman Fagan?
No, I want to, if there's a potential on investment, anytime there's any question, like Alderman Verbeek said, you should recuse yourself, so everything looks good.
Good, good. One thing you're going to find about the city of DeKalb,
Yeah.
we know what the word transparency means.
Good.
And we do our darndest to keep things as above board as possible. We don't want to give the perception of anything, and I appreciate Alderman Morris making that and recusing herself from this discussion. Now, having said that, Alderman Favor.
So I'll touch briefly on that. I would say, in my opinion, because an investment hasn't been made, it's just a consideration. There's no financial exchange been made or promised, that I would have said she could sit through the presentation. I think when it comes back for regular council consideration of a financial investment by the city, then I would recuse myself. But her just announcing that she's been talking with them, in my opinion, made that clear and open.
Good, good. And that's the reason I asked for what the spirit of the council was, and I appreciate Alderman Verbeek and Alderman Fagan chiming in, as well as you, Tony. I really appreciate that. Now, as it relates to the business itself, go ahead.
So I wasn't done.
Oh,
So,
okay.
no,
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry,
gonna
I'm sorry.
address-
Yeah.
No, I think this is absolutely fantastic. I think I read through your proposal 2 or 3 times at least. Very excited to see what you're concept is and what you want to bring to the city of DeKalb and the investment that you want to make, I think that is just absolutely fantastic. I don't want to get negative on you too quick. My only concern, what I would have, I would look to more investment, maybe outside of the city of DeKalb, or, I mean, apart from the city of DeKalb investing the TIF monies. At this point, our vision years ago was to slowly decrease the amount of TIF money that we invest into projects in the downtown area over time, as, the first projects are the most risky, and then hopefully they become less risky. I'm at the point of about 25 to 30% is where I'd feel comfortable investing taxpayer money into a venture like this right now. But I think it's a fantastic, I was talking to my wife over the weekend and said, who would have thought that Northern Illinois would become kind of the brewer, distillery, vineyard area of the country, or of Illinois even. So it's pretty exciting to see what you're doing. I've been to some rooftop facilities in Chicago. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I love the idea. Thank you very much for bringing this exciting concept to DeKalb.
Yeah, and to dovetail on what you were saying, if you take a look at some of the TIF distributions that we made, we're more in that 25% range, and in this particular proposal, to my way of thinking, seemed to be a little high. So if you could get some other either local investment or whatever to bring back, I think that would put at least me in a better position to say, hey, let's move forward with a more formalized, finalized plan. But that's Tony and I speaking. Alderman McAdams.
As well, that was my only concern was the percentage.
So is my understanding that you guys look at the entire project at a whole, and then the TIF money comes out of that, as opposed to, maybe TIF eligible elements of the project, for instance, like, permanent building enhancements, that would raise the property value, like the stairs in the roof and the elevator to the roof. These are some of the things I outlined in the deck as being the most expensive things. But we also see them as also, things that would make the business more attractive. So I guess I was a little unclear on how that all works. So if you guys have a more direct formula that we can apply, then we can, take that.
Yeah, I'm going to let Alderman Fagan make a comment on that, and then I'm going to ask City Manager Nicholas to perhaps further expand in a way to answer your question. Alderman Fagan.
Yeah, I've got a couple things, and we'll get to that.
Sure.
Okay, because that was one of my questions here. And I think you're going to get, until we figure this all out, the 42% is more than what we're pretty much, a lot of us are uncomfortable with. But what you're doing is an excellent idea.
Cool.
I love it. I mean, we need it, and looking forward to it. That building's been, it's a very solid building. What's on the second floor?
Apartments. There's 5 apartments there.
Okay, you're going to put 5 apartments, or they are there now?
They are there, and as far as I understand, they're still fully rented.
Yeah, I think maybe one is not rented. There's 6 apartments, so 5 are being rented, right?
So when putting an elevator through there, it's not going to knock out one of the apartments?
No.
The elevator's already
Not at
there.
all.
It just needs to be
Rehab?
rehab.
Okay.
Right.
And then, I guess, this is what's going to go on, where we're talking about the total project, and one of my concerns is, this is a collaboration between the building owner and the tenants, am I right? Or is this how is this all going to work?
We have not acquired the building yet.
You have not acquired the building?
But our plan is to acquire the building.
Okay, so this 42.8% is including the acquire of the building?
Correct. Yes.
Is it right now?
I believe so, yes. I believe so.
Okay, so the corporation that we would lend the money to, or give the money to, a lot of people have different philosophy on what we do,
Right.
would go into the people that own the building also?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Which
that's
would
what I
be
need.
our company, right.
Okay, and I'm going to defer to the city manager
Yeah.
that he was going to say something.
Bill, any comment on what you've heard in terms of questions and answers?
Yeah, well, just on the one point about what is it the percent of? And going back into the late winter, early spring, when we started getting down to that level of discussion, we were going through lists of actions, such as Paul described, upgrades to the elevator, structural, major plumbing and electrical retrofitting and so forth. All those things are TIF eligible. And so we worked out a couple of checklists and spreadsheets and so forth. And then, and at that point, I didn't know, and I don't think Paul knew either, what the total project might be. And as that became clear, I fell back to what the council's done recently, and that is to look at the full project. Land acquisition is eligible. The council has had mixed feelings about that because you don't control the interaction between buyer and seller. And we have discussed that on the floor here since January 1st. I've been a part of those conversations. But I asked Paul to give us an idea what the total project cost was, and then he came up with a number that is a percent of that. So it's not a percent of TIF eligible costs, it's a percent of the larger number, which is all the potential costs involved in the acquisition and development of the property.
So like, in my mind, it wasn't quite that much money, but it also depends if, if we can do the rooftop deck, there might be some fire code reasoning, or there might be some assembly reasoning that we may not be able to do that. And if that's the case, then, some of the structure would change.
Alderman Fagan, yeah.
One last question I forgot. Because the money is already spoken for, and you're talking about that this would actually be asking for money for what year?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So
We assume the rehab would take at least.
yeah, that's a question I've got. I mean, what are we talking about a time frame from the time you purchase the building to the time you get done rehabbing and the time you pour your first beer?
Our goal would be to be open by Corn Fest of 2020.
Okay.
We would do everything we could just because we think that would be a great splash.
Sure.
And a good,
To be open when?
By Cornfest.
Of this year?
2020. 2020. Sorry.
Okay. Cornfest of 2020.
6 weeks.
Pepe said that to me, and I thought that's what he meant, and I was like, no.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Verbeek.
Yeah, again, great proposal, the excellent detail and backup. So often we don't see that, so that's much appreciated. Is there another way where we can help make this work? So we resist a larger TIF incentive, but is there any type of other accommodation that could be made, not only to these folks, but to others that may be invested, may be interested in investing more, like McCabe's back here? What are those things we could look at to try to help maybe bridge that gap, especially where we've got quite a sizable capital investment?
Yep.
City Manager Nicholas.
We did this with the Egyptian, which is, we didn't assign the full building and plan review and inspection fees, but those did apply to the various Pappas projects. That is one area. That is a cost. It's a soft cost. Soft costs like that are eligible. Soft costs like architectural and engineering fees are a little more traditional to adjust or to include in this case, and those have been included already in this. But we can give it some more thought. We don't have a development fund in this area that can be run alongside the TIF district. Obviously, that's our only recurring source of capital dollars right now, for a while.
Let me try to sum this up, if I may. Now that I know it's not Cornfest 2019. We have a council that I see has clear consensus that your idea is something that we definitely want to pursue, want to see you pursue. We are hung up, if you will, to use that terminology, on the percentage of the total project and what percentage of that total cost would be assisted by the utilization of TIF dollars. okay? And so what I'd like to suggest is that our staff, along with you folks, continue to work on this, and if we can get to something that makes sense to us and makes sense for the citizens of the city of DeKalb, which look upon this group as a city council to make wise decisions as it relates to those funds. If that seems to make sense to you, I'd like to consider that we move forward in that fashion. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does that
sounds
make
good.
sense to you folks?
Yep.
Okay, Martha, Paul, Derek, unless you have anything else, I appreciate your presentation. Again, this is simply for our consideration. I feel like it's something that we're going to move forward on, and I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
That is the final consideration for this Committee of the Whole meeting. We have no executive session scheduled for this time after our Committee of the Whole meeting. I beg your pardon?
I submitted a speaker request form, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, can you wait for our next City Council meeting?
I have to wait after that one?
What's the desire of the council?
Till the actual city council meeting, you mean?
I beg your pardon?
You're talking like in 20 minutes.
Right, in 20 minutes.
Do I have to wait to the end?
No.
Okay.
No, we'll get you on right up front. If you take a look at the agenda,
Yeah, because we changed it to the beginning. Thank
Right.
you very much. I'll wait.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience on that. I just think it's a proper thing to do.
I love you guys, no problem.
Okay, thank you. We like love, you know what I mean? Okay.
All about love.
Yeah, right. Any other business? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Committee of the Whole.
Motion. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Morris, seconded by Alderman Verbeek. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned until 6 o'clock, at which time we will call to order the regular meeting of the DeKalb City Council. Thank you.